The first sign of their arrival wasn't the thunderous descent of their ships, but the silence that followed. Not a single bird chirped, not a single cloud moved across the winter-blanketed sky above Kazakhstan's remote steppe. It was as if nature itself held its breath when the Zavaran Concorde landed. Their vessel, a shimmering obsidian monolith, floated 3 feet above the ground without disturbing a single snowflake. When the ramp hissed open, 5 armored silhouettes descended like deities surveying a forgotten world. The soldiers around the perimeter stiffened. Some whispered prayers. Others muttered curses. None raised a weapon. Adrian Voss, tucked beneath a canvas of synthetic white, watched from 2.1 kilometers away. His rifle rested steady on the tripod, motionless save for the soft, periodic whir of his scope adjusting with every minor breeze shift. The aliens were punctual, down to the second. So were his calculations. The tallest alien stepped forward, a figure clad in burnished chrome plates that hummed faintly with power. His voice, filtered through universal translators, was dry and imperious. Primitive. Carbon ammunition. Internal combustion engines. Analog logistics. He turned to his comrades, sneering. It is as if we are auditing fossils. Voss rolled his jaw and adjusted the zoom. The aliens had names, complicated ones with consonants like broken glass, but he dubbed them all something simpler. Chrome was the leader. Tall, arrogant. The one currently mocking the lineup of human armaments arranged like museum exhibits. Next to him, green light, glowing joints, probable tech specialist. Behind them, the rest, shoulder cannon, cloak boy, and gator legs. Unofficial names. Unofficial war. Brigadier General Ashford approached them with the kind of caution one reserves for venomous creatures. We appreciate your interest in our defenses, he said, gesturing with open hands, voice thick with restrained irritation. Though, I believe mutual respect might yield better understanding. Chrome walked past him without acknowledgement, stopping beside an old M24 sniper rifle displayed on a collapsible stand. He snorted, an untranslatable gesture of contempt. You hope to repel galactic forces with pipes and powder. How quaint. Quaint enough to win our wars, Ashford replied, steel behind his voice now. You haven't fought us. Voss exhaled slowly through his nose. He'd heard enough. Not that it was his call to make. Not yet. The comlink in his ear crackled. Stand by. Cerberus protocol acknowledged. Countdown begins now. He didn't move. Didn't nod. Just blinked once. He had 4 to 6 minutes. 4 to 6 minutes to watch gods mock men. 4 to 6 minutes to prepare for the moment he'd make one bleed. Below, the aliens examined a tank with exposed armor. Green light circled it, fingers weaving through the air to scan it. No neural interlinks. Not even reactive shielding. This is manual warfare. Voss angled the scope slightly. Even now, a snowflake might deflect a bullet. But he'd adjusted for worse. He always did. He recalled the last time an alien like Chrome visited Earth. A different world leader, a different treaty, the same disdain. It ended in fire, and the death of 3,000. Including Voss's brother, Nathan. That was when Adrian stopped believing in protocols and started trusting in wind speeds, drop rates, and terminal ballistics. He glanced at the mission clock embedded in his visor. 40:02. Below, the aliens began what could only be described as a mock demonstration. Cloakboy activated a phasing field, disappearing from one end of the field and reappearing on the other in a shimmer of green static. Soldiers murmured. One even dropped his rifle. Pathetic, Chrome muttered. If this is Earth's best, we'll have seized the planet before their next solar cycle. Ashford folded his arms. You're not here to seize. This was supposed to be diplomacy. Chrome turned. This is diplomacy. We show mercy. You show humility. We evaluate, you obey. Your bullets don't matter. Your pride even less. At that, one of the human soldiers flinched, stepping slightly forward, too far. A warning drone from the alien line fired a pulse. Blue light cracked across the cold field. The soldier dropped, twitching, a smoking scar across his chest. He wasn't dead. Not yet. Ashford's scream was lost in the hum of the alien's tech resetting. Voss flinched, knuckles whitening on the grip of his rifle. He zoomed in, caught the soldier's breath misting from his mouth. Alive. Barely. The comlink chirped. Hold fire. 40 minutes remaining. Maintain position. He wanted to scream. Instead, he whispered into the wind. I see you. He meant chrome. He meant green light. He meant all of them. They continued their pageantry, prancing across the field, lifting tanks telekinetically, dissecting human strategy with hollow words and cruel laughter. Voss watched. Calculated. Tracked. The wind shifted, by 3 degrees west. He compensated. No movement wasted. At 35:00, he whispered again. Wind 1.4. Humidity 21. Distance lock confirmed. No heat distortion. He tapped the trigger lightly, not to fire, yet, but to remind himself of the weight behind it. Each tap was a heartbeat. The aliens didn't notice the quiet repositioning of troops along the outer ridge. Didn't see the engineering teams laying microbeacon charges inside snowbanks. Didn't notice the thin layer of powder drones lifting silently into the sky to blind their scanners. Chrome knelt beside the sniper rifle again. This is almost ceremonial. You humans love your myths. 1 bullet. 1 shot. 1 chance. He looked to Ashford. You think such romanticism will save you? Ashford didn't answer. Neither did Voss. The alien stood. Your species lacks perspective. You're infants with sharp sticks. But the stars belong to giants. And yet, Voss thought, as his crosshairs settled between the twin silver lenses of Chrome's helm, even giants can bleed. He adjusted for temperature drift. The shot wouldn't kill Chrome. Not yet. But it would start the end. The mission clock ticked to 30:00. Halfway there, Voss lay perfectly still, hidden beneath white and silence, eyes behind a scope he knew better than his own reflection. Tick-tock, he whispered. And smiled. By the 30-minute mark, the aliens had scattered like overconfident tourists through the base, their casual swagger almost cartoonish against the stark efficiency of Earth's soldiers. They examined everything, tents, vehicles, weapons crates, with the arrogance of invaders who hadn't yet declared war but had already claimed victory. Adrian Voss tracked them one by one. His eyes moved with the lens, his breath a slow, practiced rhythm. There were no sudden movements, no dramatics. Just the math. One by one, his scope locked on Chrome's lieutenants, painting them with invisible IR tags from the hunter drone Whisper floating 100 feet above, cloaked in active camouflage and silence. Green light was first, curious, analytical, prying open the guts of a jamming unit with 4 elongated fingers. His amusement was visible even through the luminous field dancing across his body like an aurora. Next was Cloak Boy, slipping in and out of view between barracks, trying, Voss assumed, to impress no one in particular. These weren't soldiers anymore. They were tourists with weapons. Below, the human base churned with calm chaos. Engineers moved deliberately, carrying what looked like toolkits but contained microbeacons no larger than fingernails. Each one was pressed onto walls, under vehicles, near power nodes. The aliens never noticed. They didn't even scan. The real signal came not from command, but from the sky. A subtle flicker across Voss's heads-up display, 3 red dots in sequence. That was the go-ahead for Phase 2, full environment control. The engineers activated a low-frequency pulse beneath the snow. Dust drones, nanite clusters the size of mites, rose invisibly into the air, settling across alien armor like pollen. To the naked eye, it was nothing. But to Whisper, now syncing with Voss's scope, they were infrared breadcrumbs. He smirked. Got you. Through his earpiece, the base's AI handler, codename Orpheus, murmured, telemetry confirmed. All targets marked. Signal strength optimal. No detection. He whispered back, what's their situational awareness rating? Dropping. Current metrics, complacency at 82%. Reaction latency estimated at 4 seconds post-impact. 4 seconds was an eternity in a killbox. On the far end of the base, Chrome was giving a speech again, something about order and mercy, the burden of dominion. He had gathered his team near one of the drone towers, gesturing with exaggerated confidence, completely unaware that 2 engineers had hardwired an overclocked EMP spike beneath his feet. Voss tuned him out. Instead, his attention focused on the shifting wind. He could see it in the way Frost crept along the edge of the antenna array, how the plume of steam from the vehicle bay twisted slightly to the left. 1.6 degrees shift. He adjusted for it. Recalibrated drop. The drone, Whisper, beeped softly in his skull piece. Gator Legs, real name still unknown, had stepped into the outer field perimeter, scanning snow for thermal differentials. His footsteps were light, confident. And then, a stumble. Voss's finger hovered over the trigger. Hold, Orpheus said immediately. Target not in ideal vector. Voss exhaled. The patience was harder now. He'd done this before, waited hours, sometimes days, but this was different. This wasn't reconnaissance. This was an invitation. An insult. A test of Earth's resolve by creatures who thought precision belonged only to machines. He hadn't spoken to anyone since sunrise, not even his spotter team. He didn't need to. Whisper knew his rhythm. The AI handlers knew his threshold. This was what he was born for, not war, but moments before war, where everything still had weight and silence still meant something. Adrian, a voice said in his ear. Ashford. Unusual. Yes, sir, he replied, still tracking movement across the field. You understand what happens when the clock hits 0? Yes, sir. Any doubts? Only in their odds. A pause. Good. Because they've just accessed our communications server. It's a breach. The diplomatic facade is over. Voss said nothing. He simply tapped the side of his visor twice. Whisper beeped. The red crosshairs expanded, then narrowed to a tighter cone, compensating for the thermal scatter. 22 minutes remained. In the barracks, green light held up a human sidearm, turned it over, scoffed. Unbalanced. Short range. Inelegant. Then he dropped it in the snow. Voss took a sharp breath. Not because of the insult, but because of the sound. It was small. Hollow. The kind of drop that made you look. But green light didn't look. Neither did any of them. The arrogance wasn't just cultural. It was strategic blindness. Their training hadn't prepared them for an enemy whose best weapons were still made of steel and fire and will. Prep package Cerberus V, Orpheus whispered. You're green in 20. Voss opened the encrypted channel and tapped twice. All across the base, silent acknowledgements lit up on HUDs and visors. No one spoke. They didn't have to. The aliens had just entered the final phase of their mock inspection. Chrome stood atop the drone tower now, his voice projected through base speakers. We have deemed your species inadequate for autonomous defense. Your sovereignty is hereby provisional, pending reassignment. Ashford didn't respond. He simply folded his hands behind his back and looked up at the man. Voss adjusted the final reticle. Chrome's forehead was centered. 18 minutes, Orpheus said. And then, unexpected movement. The young soldier who'd been wounded earlier, the one who took the pulse blast, staggered to his feet, unnoticed by the Zavarans. He looked up at Chrome, face pale, chest bandaged, teeth gritted in pain. He raised a trembling fist. And whispered, You forgot we bleed. Chrome looked down, puzzled. Voss smiled. 17 minutes left. At 16 minutes, the first tremor passed through the snow, subtle, almost poetic. Chrome paused mid-sentence, his armored heel making a faint crunch as he shifted weight, confused by a sound he couldn't hear but somehow felt. The base was too quiet now. The humans had stopped moving, stopped blinking. Even the wind obeyed something larger. Adrian Voss, still prone under his thermal camo, had already dialed in his next 3 targets. Chrome was locked. Green light would fall second. Cloak Boy would panic and vanish, but the nanite trace would trail him like smoke. He wouldn't get far. The command to fire hadn't come. It didn't need to. The Zavarans had drawn first blood hours ago, with contempt, with their laughter, with the pulse weapon that dropped a 19-year-old corporal like a discarded toy. Earth had merely waited for the echo to return. Orpheus, Voss said calmly, confirm wind and drop. The AI responded instantly. Velocity adjusted. Trajectory stable. You are clear. He didn't squeeze the trigger. He breathed, blinked, and let the rifle do what it was built to do. The silence cracked like a bone splitting. Chrome's helmet recoiled violently, the impact fracturing the energy field around it. Sparks danced. The bullet didn't kill him, not instantly, but it broke something fundamental, the illusion of invulnerability. A second shot left the chamber before his body even began to tilt. Greenlight's torso twisted midair as his shield shorted out in a shimmer of green and orange, the slug having passed through both his lungs before his neural net caught up. Chaos didn't come in a scream. It arrived as a glitch. Cloak Boy vanished, reflex, but the beacon-laced dust lit his path in ultraviolet, and Whisper's visual projection fed it directly into Voss's scope. He fired, and a spray of invisible mist erupted 10 feet beyond the tower. A thud followed. Final. Across the base, humans surged into motion with brutal precision. Engineers tore off their disguises and armed suppressed carbines. Portable EM towers activated in tandem, turning Zavaran communications into static. The visitors, so smug, so composed, were now clutching at non-functional helmets and blinking through failed HUDs. Ashford didn't flinch as Chrome hit the ground beside him with a mechanical grunt. He merely stepped back, straightened his jacket, and said, "This is the part where you start listening." The fourth alien, gator legs, charged, knees pumping like pistons, but a tripwire mine detonated at his feet, sending him end over end into the ice. He staggered to his hands, roaring, only to catch a round through his visor that ended the sound mid-growl. Orpheus's voice came soft. 4 down. Final target obscured. Cloak reactivated. Doesn't matter, Voss replied. He was already rotating position, rifle still hot. A second rifle, identical but calibrated for thermal scatter, was waiting in the snow. He lined it up with practice speed, rotating the barrel 2 degrees west. A shimmer moved along the edge of the generator shack. It wasn't a shadow. It was the absence of one. Fifth contact, 10 meters from auxiliary grid, Voss said. No confirmation came. He didn't need one. He pulled the trigger. The shimmer twitched. Then it fell like a curtain dropping. All 5 Zavarans were down. The field was quiet again. Whisper circled above, confirming signals. No reinforcements. No secondary transmissions. Just silence and cooling metal. Ashford bent beside Chrome's twitching body, watching sparks flutter from the cracked lenses. "This is why we still use bullets," he murmured. The alien, gasping in confusion, wheezed something in his native tongue. Ashford leaned closer. "Because bullets don't need translation." Behind the general, soldiers moved quickly, securing weapons, gathering tech, dragging alien bodies for containment. Engineers collected dust drones for analysis. Orpheus began indexing every moment from the last 58 minutes into a categorized archive for global review. And atop the hill, Voss just lay still, eyes watching the horizon through a fading lens flare. The job was done. But the war was just getting started. The aliens didn't send diplomats when they returned 2 weeks later. They sent a fleet. The sky fractured open like a splitting pane of glass, black lines of spacecraft carving across the atmosphere in eerie, deliberate silence. Cities didn't scream. They watched. Children looked up from playgrounds. Soldiers were called from leave. Satellites tried to track them, but the Zavaran fleet moved like phantoms, drifting through orbit without propulsion signatures. The diplomats were gone. Now came the enforcers. Adrian Voss stood atop the northern ridge of what used to be Base Lancer. It was ash now, cleared of all trace except the snaking trench where he'd lain. A museum, they said, built already into legend. He didn't care for legends. He cared for distances, for wind speeds, and the weight of silence before a shot. He hadn't fired a round in 13 days. The kill from Chrome's squad was replayed across Earth's networks like gospel. Humanity's warning shot. The Zavarans called it treachery. A provocation. But Voss knew better. The aliens had been hunting submission. Now they had found resistance. They are repositioning, came Orpheus's voice through his internal comms. 73 vessels in low orbit. Mass displacement indicates planetary landfall within 32 hours. He didn't respond immediately. He was staring at the new rifle laid across his gloves. Not issued. Custom forged. A gift from the engineers who had watched his hands save a world in under a minute. What's their primary vector? He asked eventually. Target zone, Central Europe. Civilian populations prioritized. Psychological warfare expected. They've learned from their mistake. He smirked, dry and bitter. They think we made a mistake. Below the ridge, a temporary outpost buzzed to life, generators, radar, personnel in exosuits unloading railguns and thermal anchors. Voss hated how loud it all was. But Earth wasn't hiding anymore. He moved through the camp without a word. Soldiers stepped aside when they saw him, some saluting, others just nodding with something deeper than respect. Reverence, maybe. He hated that too. Ashford met him outside the Central Command tent. The general looked older, worn by briefings and sleepless nights, the kind of exhaustion that came from knowing you'd seen the beginning of something terrible and were still standing too close to its teeth. We're placing you in Geneva for Overwatch, Ashford said. High-altitude nest. You'll have a 10-kilometer visual on the approach vector. If they land troops, you'll be our first eyes. And if they don't land? Voss asked. Ashford didn't answer right away. Then you won't be the first eyes. You'll be the last. Voss nodded, as if it were weather. By nightfall, he was airborne in a stealth transport that shimmered against the stars. Beneath them, Earth was preparing. Every mountain range hid batteries. Every city skyline was quietly reinforced. The world had seen what 5 aliens could do with words. Now they were preparing for thousands who wouldn't speak. Orpheus returned in his ear as they crossed into Swiss airspace. We've intercepted partial command traffic from the Zavarans. It's different. Less bravado. More structure. Meaning? Voss asked. Meaning this isn't retaliation. This is procedure. This is what happens when a world fails its test. The plane's lights dimmed. The pilot gave a thumbs up. Geneva's glacial ridges came into view below, armored bunkers built into ancient stone. As Voss stepped out, a tech officer rushed to his side. Sir, sniper roost is ready. We've recalibrated for high-speed orbital descents. You'll be linked to skygrid intercepts and orbital heat maps. He nodded once and climbed the narrow path to the perch carved into the mountainside. It was quiet. Cold. Good. He opened the rifle case, unfolded the bipod, and lay prone on the fresh stone slab, scanning the skies above Europe. Through the lens, he could already see faint shadows gliding between stars. They weren't landing. They were circling. You think they're scared of you? Orpheus asked, voice calm but curious. No, Voss said. I think they're scared of us. Of what happens when one man shoots first, and an entire species follows. There was a pause. Then the AI whispered, we've just confirmed movement. Landing craft. Not troops. Machinery. Large scale. Possibly terraforming systems. The ground beneath him seemed to still. They are not just invading, Voss said quietly. They are trying to overwrite the planet. Affirmative. His finger hovered just over the safety. Then we rewrite it back. The first of the landing vessels began entry. A burn of light across the stratosphere. 1. Then 4. Then dozens. Voss didn't blink. He waited for wind. For silence. For the moment the giants stepped into his crosshairs again.